My husband gave me a bracelet to heal my heart. My doctor told me it was slowly poisoning me, but the bracelet was just the beginning. The air in the conference room grew thicker by the minute, a palpable weight that seemed to press down on Ada Vance from all sides. She sat rigidly at the long, dark oak table, her tablet glowing before her, fingers flying as she diligently recorded every measured word Silas Kincaid uttered. The CEO spoke with deliberate clarity, emphasizing each phrase as if pre-writing the meeting minutes in his mind. "Shipments must be approved by the 15th, he announced, his gaze sweeping the room like a searchlight. "No delays. Ada, make a note of that as a separate item." She nodded, a practiced, professional motion, but a sudden, strange heaviness invaded her fingers. The keys on her tablet seemed to drift away, the letters swimming and blurring before her eyes. She blinked, trying to force the world back into focus, but the disorientation only intensified. A dull, insistent pounding began a rhythm in her temples, and a bizarre pressure bloomed in her chest, as if a cold, heavy stone had been placed upon her ribs and was slowly, inexorably pressing down. "This will pass," she thought, the words a silent mantra against the rising panic. "I just haven't slept enough." The last 2 weeks had been a marathon of exhaustion. The quarterly report, tense negotiations with new partners, endless calls and approvals that stretched deep into the night. Ada was no stranger to the grind. As the executive assistant to the director of a major logistics company, total dedication was the baseline. Silas Kincaid was a demanding leader, but fair, and he valued her impeccable punctuality, her eerie ability to anticipate his needs, her quiet mastery in keeping a dozen chaotic processes spinning smoothly. In 3 years, she had become an irreplaceable cog in the corporate machine, knowing every intricacy of document flow, remembering every key client's name, calmly untangling the most knotted departmental conflicts. Her colleagues respected her for a professionalism that bordered on the serene. But today, something was deeply, fundamentally wrong. She looked up, forcing her eyes to find Silas. He was still speaking, gesturing with one hand toward his sister, Iris Kincaid, the HR director. "Iris, you need to get human resources involved in the staffing expansion. We will need 2 additional client relations managers, preferably with experience in international logistics." Iris, her face a mask of impassive competence, wrote something in her notebook. Ada had always admired that composure, the way Iris could maintain a glacial distance even in the stormiest meetings. Suddenly, the entire room tilted. Ada pressed herself sharply against the hard back of her chair, her knuckles white as she gripped the table's edge. Her heart erupted into a frantic, galloping rhythm against her ribs. Her breath hitched, coming in shallow, insufficient gasps, as if the thickened air held no oxygen for her lungs. A cold sweat beaded on her forehead, tracing paths down her dark skin, and the world began to tunnel into darkness at the edges. "Ada, can you hear me?" Silas's voice sounded muffled, distant, as if heard from underwater. She wrenched her head up, muscles protesting, and forced a thin smile onto her lips. "Yes, of course. I apologize. It is just a little hot. Maybe open a window." "No, thank you," Ada managed, the words feeling thick on her tongue. "I'd better step out for a minute and get some fresh air. I will be right back." She rose, commanding her legs to move with confidence, but they felt treacherous, made of liquid and sand. She felt the weight of every gaze in the room, concern, curiosity, sympathy, like physical touches against her skin as she walked to the door. Stepping into the cool, silent corridor was no relief. She leaned against the wall, the cold surface a minor shock against her back, but the dizziness only deepened, her vision swimming with dark spots. Her hands trembled violently. "I need to go outside," the thought cut through the fog. "The air will make it better." Moving on autopilot, she passed her neat workspace with its dual monitors, orderly stacks of folders, and the pot of violets she watered every Monday. She snatched her phone and purse, threw a light cardigan over her shoulders, and headed for the elevator. The receptionist, Sierra, called out, "Miss Vance, are you okay? Should I get you some water?" "Thanks, Sierra, no need. Just stepping out for 5 minutes." The elevator doors slid open with a silent sigh. Inside, the mirrored walls reflected a ghost, a pale, sweating woman with wide, frightened eyes. She scarcely recognized herself. The usually polished, pulled-together professional was gone, replaced by this sickly, exhausted stranger. The April air outside hit her face with a gentle, blossom-scented breeze, but it brought no solace. Instead, a wave of profound weakness washed over her, buckling her knees. The world swayed and blurred. She barely made it to a wooden bench in a small plaza adjacent to the building, collapsing onto the slats as her vision darkened. Her heart hammered a wild, painful tattoo against her sternum. She tried to draw a deep breath, but it caught in her constricted chest. A high-pitched ringing filled her ears, muting the distant sounds of traffic and conversation into a meaningless hum. "What is happening to me?" The desperate question echoed in her spinning mind. Then a blurry shape loomed over her, an elderly man, perhaps in his 70s, in a simple gray jacket and a knit cap. His wrinkled face was etched with concern, and his hands, surprisingly strong-looking, reached for her wrist. "What are you doing?" Ada jerked her arm back, sharply, a spike of fear cut through the malaise. "That is a gift from my husband." The man didn't retreat. He studied her with an unsettling intensity, his voice low and serious. "Are you feeling sick because of this bracelet? Look here." Confused, Ada looked down at her own wrist. There, gleaming against her skin, was the thin metal bracelet Victor had given her 3 months ago, an elegant chain with small, almost invisible magnetic inserts. He had presented it with such earnest care, explaining it was a genuine medical device ordered through a specialist acquaintance, designed to improve circulation and support heart function. It was expensive, a token of his love and concern. "You wear this constantly, are you not allowed? How do you know?" Ada's voice trembled. "Who are you anyway? Why did you try to take off my bracelet?" Calmly, the man pulled a worn, dark red ID card from his pocket. "Arthur P. Vaughn. I am a doctor. Or rather, I was a doctor until I retired. I worked as a cardiologist at Mercy General Hospital for 40 years, and I saw quite a few cases where such trinkets caused more harm than good." Ada struggled to focus on the faded document, an official ID from the 90s bearing the photo of a younger, solemn-faced man and the chief of staff's signature. "But my husband said the bracelet helps," she objected weakly, the protest dying in her throat. Arthur shook his head, settling on the bench beside her. "Listen, young lady, I don't know who your husband is or what he told you, but I see your condition. You can barely breathe, you are pale as a sheet, your hands are shaking." "This is not just fatigue. Take off the bracelet for at least an hour and feel the difference." Ada hesitated, Victor's voice ringing in her memory, his insistence she never remove it, his visible upset the one time she'd forgotten to put it back on after a shower, his hour-long lecture on the necessity of constant wear. "I do not know," she mumbled. "My husband said I must not take it off." Arthur sighed. "Okay, then let us look at it this way. How long have you been wearing it?" 3 months, since about the middle of January. "And when did the episode start? Like the one right now?" Ada thought back. The first wave of dizziness had hit about 2 weeks after Victor gave her the gift. She chalked it up to work stress then, with the annual audit looming. But the episodes had returned, increasing in frequency, once a week, then twice, then nearly every day. She'd numbed the headaches with Kills and pushed through. "About 2 weeks later," she answered quietly. "Rarely at first, then more often." "You see?" Arthur nodded. "Coincidence? I do not think so. These magnetic bracelets are a controversial thing. For some, they are harmless. but for others, they can be contraindicated, especially if a person has a tendency toward arrhythmia or blood pressure spikes. Do you have any heart problems? A cold knot tightened in Ada's stomach. She remembered the checkup a year ago, the doctor noting mild tachycardia. Nothing serious, they'd said. Just watch your routine and avoid overexertion. Victor had been there, holding her hand, soothing her. Yes, she admitted. I have slight tachycardia. The old doctor frowned, a deep crease forming between his brows. Did you tell your husband about this? Of course. He was with me at the doctor's. And he still bought you a magnetic bracelet? Disbelief colored Arthur's voice. That is strange, to say the least. Any doctor will tell you that with heart rhythm disorders, such things must be used with great caution, or better yet, not used at all. Ada fell silent, her thoughts tangling. Before she could untangle them, her phone vibrated in her pocket. With a trembling hand, she pulled it out. Victor. Hello? Her voice sounded thin and strained. Why aren't you at work? Irritation bled through his tone. Silas called, said you stepped out and didn't come back. What happened? Where are you? I felt sick. I went out to breathe. I'm sitting on a bench by the office. Again. Victor sighed, the sound heavy with unconcealed dissatisfaction. Did you take the bracelet off? Ada's eyes dropped to the slender chain, still gleaming against her skin. No. Then what is the matter? You know it helps you. You are probably just overworked. Ask to leave work, go home, rest. I will finish early, pick up groceries, and make dinner. Okay, she answered mechanically, ending the call. Arthur looked at her with profound sympathy. That was him? Ada nodded, unable to speak. Listen to my advice. Go to a clinic, get a checkup today, and find out the truth. And take the bracelet off, at least for a while, until you get the results. See how you feel without it. Moving slowly, as in a dream, Ada undid the delicate clasp and slipped the bracelet from her wrist. The metal was warm from her skin, unnaturally heavy in her palm. A strange thing happened within a minute. Her breathing eased, just a fraction, and the crushing pressure on her chest lessened its grip. Was it a placebo, a trick of the mind, or real relief? She didn't know, but the difference was palpable. Thank you, she whispered, tucking the bracelet into her blazer pocket. Thank you very much. Arthur smiled a gentle, paternal smile. Take care of yourself, young lady. Health is the only thing that truly belongs to you. Do not let anyone manage it for you, even the closest people. He adjusted his cap and walked slowly away, leaving Ada alone on the bench with a storm of terrifying questions beginning to whirl in the clearing fog of her mind. What if Victor actually knew? The thought was a cold blade, too monstrous to fully grasp. He loved her. He took care of her. He couldn't. But then why the insistence, the anger when she forgot it, the constant discouragement from seeing a doctor? Her strength returning by slow degrees, Ada called Silas Kincaid. Ada, how are you feeling? His voice was laced with genuine concern. Better, thank you, Mr. Kincaid. I apologize for interrupting the meeting. May I take the rest of the day off? I need to see a doctor. Of course. Take care of your health. Everything else can wait. Sitting in her car, hands gripping the steering wheel, Ada stared into the middle distance. The bracelet was an inert weight in her pocket. She caught herself mechanically reaching for her bare wrist, a 3-month habit ingrained by Victor's daily reminders. Don't forget to put on the bracelet. It's important for your health. She remembered the evening he gave it to her, the cozy kitchen smelling of apple pie, his smile as he presented the velvet box. This is for you. I kept worrying after that visit to the cardiologist. This isn't just jewelry. The magnetic field helps improve circulation, stabilizes the rhythm. Wear it constantly and you will feel better. She had been so touched by his attentiveness. Now, sitting in the silent car, his insistence felt different, not like care, but like programming. She called a private cardiology clinic and secured an appointment for that afternoon. With hours to kill and no desire to go home to Victor's probing questions, she drove to a quiet cafe by the waterfront, ordering peppermint tea and trying to order her thoughts. The timeline was damning. The symptoms began exactly 2 weeks after the bracelet became a permanent fixture. Every time she suggested a doctor, Victor dissuaded her. Every time she mentioned taking it off, he grew agitated. Her phone buzzed with a message from Victor. "I finished early, driving home now. Where are you? How do you feel?" She typed a vague reply about taking a walk, needing air. His response was swift. "Okay, I am worried. Call when you're driving home. Love you." Love you. He said it every day. But love didn't explain the control, the subtle isolation, the way his concern curdled into irritation when she stepped out of line. She remembered their whirlwind romance, his charming courtship, the sense of security he offered. Gradually, that security became a cage, questions about her work conversations, requests to account for her time, displeasure at her independence. And then the bracelet appeared, and her health began its slow unravel. Her phone rang, Victor's name flashing. She answered. "Hello, Ada. Where are you? I've been home for half an hour and you are still not here." "I'm walking by the waterfront. I need to be alone." A dangerous pause. "Alone? You felt sick and you decided to walk alone? Ada, that is irresponsible. What if you feel sick again? Who will help you?" "I'm already better." "Is the bracelet on you?" His voice tightened. She gripped the phone. "No." "Why?" The word was sharp, a crack of anger.
"Do you want the attack to happen again? Ada, I do not understand what is happening with you. I try to take care of you, and you ignore my requests." "Victor, I made an appointment with a cardiologist today at 4:30. I want to check if this bracelet is helping me." The silence that followed was long and heavy. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted to a soft, wheedling affection. "Why do you need doctors? They only drain money. The bracelet is a proven remedy. Just put it back on and don't be nervous. Stress, that is what is harming you." "I'm going to the doctor anyway," Ada said, a new firmness in her voice. "Okay," he sighed, the sound fraught with performative patience. "If it makes you calmer, but put the bracelet on for the day, please, for my sake." "No, I want the doctor to see me without it, to compare the condition." His voice dropped, a low threat underlying the words. "Ada, you aren't listening to me. This will end badly." "What exactly will end badly?" She felt a cold clarity wash over her. "Your health," he almost shouted. "Without the bracelet, you will get even worse. I'm telling you this as the person who takes care of you." Arthur Vaughn's words echoed in her mind. "Do not let anyone manage your health." "Victor, I have to go. See you in the evening." She hung up and muted her phone, her hands trembling not from weakness now, but from a dawning, chilling understanding. This wasn't care, it was control, and the bracelet was his instrument. At the cardiology center, Dr. Mercer, a woman with a keen, attentive gaze, listened to Ada's story, examined the bracelet, and shook her head. "Ms. Vance, with tachycardia, such items can be dangerous. The magnetic field can affect heart rhythm unpredictably. It is strictly contraindicated." The ECG was performed, the machine humming as it mapped the electrical impulses of her heart. "Your rhythm is within normal limits now," Dr. Mercer said, studying the printout. "Mild tachycardia is present but controlled. You say you haven't worn the bracelet for several hours and you feel better?" "Much better," Ada confirmed. "I thought so. Magnetic bracelets are a pseudo-medical device. Their effectiveness isn't proven, and in your condition, they can cause harm, precisely the symptoms you described." She handed Ada a formal report stamped with the clinic seal. Diagnosis: sinus tachycardia. Wearing magnetic items is strictly contraindicated due to the risk of exacerbating heart rhythm disorders. It was proof, tangible medical proof, that the gift Victor had insisted would heal her was actually making her sick. Dr. Mercer's final warning was gentle but grave. If someone consciously gives you something that harms your health, knowing about the contraindications, this is very serious.
perhaps you should consult not only a cardiologist, but also a psychologist or a lawyer. The drive home was a journey into a nightmare she was now fully awake to see. Victor was waiting, dinner cooking, a facade of normalcy that now seemed grotesque. She handed him the medical report. He scanned it, and his face cycled through surprise, irritation, and finally, raw anger. What is this nonsense? Some female doctor decided the bracelet is harmful? On what grounds? On the grounds that I have tachycardia and magnetic items are contraindicated with this diagnosis, Ada said, her voice steady despite the earthquake inside her. You knew that. I didn't know anything. I bought you an expensive gift to help, and you're interrogating me? You were with me at the cardiologist a year ago. You heard the diagnosis. You knew. He slammed his fist on the table. The violence of the gesture made her flinch. What do you think you are doing? You are accusing me of wanting to harm you? I am your husband. I take care of you. Care is not forcing me to wear something that destroys my health. It doesn't destroy it. Doctors don't understand. I read research articles. Magnetic therapy helps. It is contraindicated, Ada repeated, the medical term a shield, and you know it. Why did you insist? Why did you get angry when I took the bracelet off? Why did you talk me out of seeing doctors? He stepped closer, looming over her, his face contorted. Because you don't know how to take care of yourself. Because without me, you won't cope. I try to control you because you are incapable of it yourself. The word hung in the air, finally spoken aloud. Control. You want to control me? Yes, he shouted, and there is nothing wrong with that. I am your husband. I know better what you need. You don't. You are not a doctor. You just want me to be weak and dependent on you. He fell silent, breathing heavily. Then his voice dropped again into that false, affectionate tone. Ada, are you tired? You're nervous. Let's eat. We'll rest and everything will be fine. I don't want to fight with you. I'm not tired, Ada said, shaking her head. I just finally understood you don't care about me. You control me. The bracelet is just a tool. You wanted me to feel sick so I would be afraid and depend on you. That is delirium. He turned away. You think too much. Doctors hammered all kinds of nonsense into your head. Ada placed the bracelet on the table between them. I will not wear this anymore. I will not listen to your orders. My health is my responsibility. Victor whirled back, snatching the bracelet and clenching it in his fist. You will regret this. Without me, you are lost. Who will help you when you get sick? Who will take care of you? I will take care of myself, and if I need help, I will turn to doctors, to real doctors, not to a husband who slips me dangerous things. He stepped closer, invading her space. You are ungrateful. I did so much for you, married you, provide for you, take care of you, and you treat me like this? Care is not control. Love is not manipulation. You have no right to manage my health. I do, he barked. I am your wife, Ada said quietly, the words final. For now. The silence that followed was thick with the shattering of their shared life. Seeing the fear of losing control flash in his eyes, she knew there was no discussion left. She packed a bag while he loomed in the doorway, demanding she stay. With a surge of adrenaline and fear, she pushed past him, fled the apartment, and drove away. His screams echoed in the stairwell. She found sanctuary with Iris Kincaid, who recognized the pattern immediately. This is called domestic violence, Ada, psychological. With Iris's support and the counsel of a lawyer, Eleanor Tate, Ada began the process of reclaiming her life. She filed for divorce, documented Victor's threatening messages and calls, and underwent further medical tests that confirmed the bracelet had caused measurable disturbances in her heart rhythm. Victor fought, threatened, and tried every manipulative tactic, from pleading apologies to vile threats to ruin her career. But Ada held firm, armored by evidence and her newfound resolve. The court hearing was tense, quiet battle. Victor, with his lawyer, presented himself as a concerned, wronged husband. Ada, with Eleanor, presented medical reports, witness testimony from Iris, and audio recordings of his threats.
The judge's decision was swift and unambiguous. Considering the psychological pressure, the harm to health, and the threats, the marriage was dissolved. Walking out of the courthouse into the spring sunshine, the decree in her hand, Ada felt a weight lift that had nothing to do with the bracelet and everything to do with the man who had given it to her. A month later, legally free, she moved into her own small apartment, a space of her own where no one controlled the air she breathed. Silas Concade, impressed by her resilience, offered her a promotion to Vice President of Administration, a testament to the strength she had discovered in the wreckage. One day, on her lunch break, she sat on the same plaza bench. She saw Arthur Vaughan walking slowly with his cane. She called out to him, thanking him for the warning that had changed the course of her life. He smiled, noting the ease in her breath, the light in her eyes. "You breathe differently now," he said. And she did, deeply, freely, and without fear. The past was a closed chapter. The future, for the first time in a long time, was entirely and wonderfully her own. Ada took a slow, deep breath of the clean office air, letting the lingering scent of Iris's lavender desk spray fill her lungs. The promotion was still new, the title Vice President of Administration feeling both thrilling and slightly oversized on her shoulders, like a perfectly tailored suit she was still growing into. Her new office was a quiet sanctuary, a corner room with a view of the city's skyline rather than the interior cubicle farm. The pot of violets from her old desk sat proudly on the windowsill, a small, living thread connecting her past to this formidable present. The work was a welcome tempest, budget allocations, interdepartmental strategy sessions, streamlining the very logistical processes she once merely coordinated. It was challenging, all-consuming, and exactly what she needed. It left little room for the silent, creeping thoughts that tried to surface in the stillness of her new apartment at night. The echo of a slamming fist on a table, the cold, threatening tone in a voice that once whispered, "I love you," the phantom weight of a bracelet on her wrist. Her phone, now a tool of her trade rather than a tether to scrutiny, buzzed with a calendar reminder. Helton account review, 3 p.m. She was about to gather her files when her direct line rang, an internal extension. It was Sierra, the receptionist, her usually cheerful voice edged with a strange hesitancy. "Miss Vance? Sorry to bother you. There's a delivery for you at the front desk. It's not the usual courier." Ada's pen stilled above her notepad. "What sort of delivery, Sierra?" "A bouquet. A really large one. Lilies and roses. The man who dropped it off just said it was for you and left immediately. He didn't look like a florist." A cold trickle, familiar and unwelcome, traced a path down Ada's spine. Victor favored lilies. He called them elegant and strong, like he claimed she was. She hadn't heard from him since the court's final decree arrived a month ago, a blessed silence she attributed to his defeat. "Is there a card?" "Yes. Do you want me to bring it up, or—" "Read it to me, please, Sierra." Ada kept her voice level, the professional veneers firmly in place. A rustle of paper. Sierra's voice was a whisper. "It says, 'To new beginnings. You've always been a rose among thorns. I'm watching you bloom. V.'" She paused. "Should I throw them out?" "Watching you bloom." The words were a violation, a pair of eyes she could feel on the back of her neck. This wasn't an apology, it was a reclamation, a statement. He knew where she worked, he knew she'd been promoted, he was marking his territory from a distance. "No," Ada said, the decision firming as she spoke. "Don't throw them out. Leave them at the reception desk. I'll be down in a moment." She ended the call and sat perfectly still for a full minute, listening to the steady, strong beat of her own heart. No skips, no flutters, just a solid, rhythmic proof of life. She picked up her phone again and dialed Eleanor Tate. "Ada, how's the new office?" the lawyer greeted warmly. "It's good, Eleanor. Something's happened." She relayed the delivery, the card, the implied threat in the innocuous words. Eleanor's tone shifted immediately to one of sharp focus. It's a classic hoovering tactic, trying to suck you back in with a mixture of nostalgia and a subtle reminder of his presence. The "watching you" line is particularly concerning. It's meant to instill a sense of surveillance. "Do you feel unsafe?" Ada looked out at the skyline. Not unsafe, angry, violated. This is my space now. Good. Hold on to that anger. It's more useful than fear. Document this. Take a photo of the bouquet and the card. Email it to me. Do not respond in any way. Do not acknowledge it. He is testing the fences, Ada. Your silence is the strongest reply. If he escalates, a direct approach, repeated attempts at contact, we go back to the judge and file for a restraining order. We have the history. One more step and we'll have the cause. Okay. Ada exhaled. Thank you. Stay alert, but don't let him steal your peace. It's what he wants. Ada went downstairs. The bouquet was grotesquely lavish, an explosion of white lilies and deep red roses that dominated the sleek, modern reception desk, looking utterly out of place. She took out her phone and photographed it calmly from several angles, then picked up the small envelope, extracting the card with 2 fingers. She photographed that, too. Sierra watched wide-eyed. Would you like me to dispose of them now, Miss Vance? Ada looked at the flowers, at the symbol of a poisoned past trying to infiltrate her present. No, put them in the main staff kitchen, Sierra. Let everyone enjoy them. Flowers shouldn't go to waste. Let the gift meant to intimidate her become a source of petty office gossip and a free floral arrangement. Let Victor's calculated gesture be neutralized, communal property. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings, but a new layer of awareness hummed beneath her focus. She found herself noting the people in the lobby when she came back from lunch, glancing over her shoulder in the parking garage, a habit she'd worked hard to break, now resurfacing with a vengeance. The victory of the courtroom felt suddenly fragile, a paper shield against a persistent rain. A week passed with no further contact. The lilies in the kitchen wilted and were thrown away. Ada began to relax again, telling herself it had been a final, petty jab from a sore loser. She threw herself into planning a major logistics symposium the company was hosting, a project that required liaising with vendors, tech teams, and guest speakers. It was during a final walkthrough of the conference center the day before the event that the second incident occurred. She was alone in the vast, empty ballroom, checking sightlines from the stage, when her phone vibrated. A text message from an unknown number.
The blue suit is a good color on you, but the black one you wore Tuesday was more powerful. You should wear your hair up for your speech tomorrow. It commands respect. Ada froze, the detailed schedule in her hand fluttering to the carpeted floor. Her blood ran cold. The blue suit. She was wearing it now. The black one from Tuesday? She had worn it for an internal briefing in her own office with no external guests. He was watching, not just from a distance, close, specific. He knew her schedule, her movements. A surge of pure, undiluted terror, colder and sharper than any she'd felt during her health episodes, locked her muscles. She spun around, her eyes scanning the shadowed corners of the empty ballroom, the glass doors leading to the service corridors, the dark tech booth at the back. Nothing. No one. But the feeling of eyes was overwhelming. She fumbled with her phone, her fingers clumsy, and took a screenshot of the message. She forwarded it immediately to Eleanor with a single trembling line. He's here, at the conference center. Or he was. Eleanor's response was instantaneous. Call security at the venue now. Do not leave that room alone. I'm calling the police. Do not engage. Ada punched in the number for the conference center security office, her voice surprisingly steady as she reported a potential stalker and described Victor. She stayed on the stage, under the bright lights, feeling utterly exposed, yet reasoning it was the most visible, least ambushable spot. Security arrived within minutes, 2 uniformed men who swept the room and the immediate backstage areas. They found nothing, no sign of forced entry, no one lurking. The police arrived, took her statement, and reviewed the text. They agreed it was threatening and constituted harassment. They promised to pay Victor a visit for a chat, a warning. But without a direct, immediate threat of violence, their hands were tied. He's smart, Ada said to Eleanor later that night, wrapped in a blanket on Iris's couch. She had gone straight there, unable to face her empty apartment. He's staying just on the wrong side of actionable. Flowers, complimentary texts. He's letting me know he's there, that he can see me without actually doing anything the police can arrest him for. It's a campaign of psychological terror, Iris said grimly, handing Ada a mug of tea. He's trying to undo all your progress, to make you feel just as afraid and controlled as you did when you were wearing that bracelet. He's weaponizing your own environment. Eleanor, on speakerphone, agreed. The police visit might deter him, or it might anger him. We need to be prepared for an escalation. Ada, I want you to consider the restraining order, now, tonight. We have the history, the medical abuse, the court records, and now these 2 incidents of harassment. A judge will grant it. It creates a legal boundary. If he crosses it, he goes to jail. Ada stared into the steaming tea. A restraining order felt like a declaration of war, but also like a necessary fortification. Do it, she said, her voice quiet but resolved. The next day, with the symposium in full swing, Ada stood backstage, her hair defiantly down, framing her face. She had her speech memorized. In her purse, her phone was set to record audio. In her jacket pocket was a copy of the freshly filed petition for the restraining order. The ballroom was packed, a sea of expectant faces. As she was announced and walked to the podium, the spotlight hot on her skin, her eyes instinctively scanned the back of the room. And there, standing just inside the doors, leaning casually against the wall, was Victor. He was dressed in dark clothes, nearly blending into the shadows, but his gaze was a laser, fixed on her. He didn't smile, didn't scowl, he just watched. A predator observing its prey re-enter its natural habitat. Their eyes met across the crowded space. A jolt like an electric shock went through her. For a second, the old fear threatened to rise, to choke her voice before she even began. She saw the faint, smug tilt of his head, as if he could sense her panic. Then she felt it, the steady, strong, unflinching beat of her own heart, the heart he had tried to weaken, to control, to make dependent. It was beating for her. It was hers. She held his gaze, and instead of looking away, she gave him a slow, deliberate blink, a dismissal. Then she turned to the microphone, adjusted it, and began to speak. Her voice was clear, confident, and carried to every corner of the room. She spoke without a single tremor. She owned the room. When she finished, to strong applause, she looked back to the doors. He was gone. Later, as the event wound down, a uniformed police officer approached her with a security guard. Ms. Vance, we detained a man matching your ex-husband's description outside. He was loitering near a service entrance. He claimed he was here for the symposium, but his badge was a fake. We've informed him of the filed restraining order. He's been escorted from the property. We'll have a car do extra patrols past your residence tonight. Thank you, Ada said. The formal words barely contained her relief. She drove home to her own apartment that night, not Iris's. She double-checked the locks, peering through the peephole into the empty hallway. The silence felt different now. It wasn't the silence of being watched. It was the silence after a battle. He had made his move, and he had been seen, documented, and legally repelled. A few days later, the official restraining order was served and granted. It established a perimeter of 500 yards around her person, her home, and her workplace. Any violation meant immediate arrest. The silence that followed this time felt deeper, more permanent. Weeks turned into a month. No flowers, no texts, no shadowy figures in doorways. Ada's vigilance began slowly to relax into simple caution. She started to believe that the legal line in the sand had been enough. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening, she was working late, finalizing the budget report. Most of the floor was dark and quiet. The hiss of the rain against the window was the only sound. Her phone buzzed, a notification from the building security app she installed after the symposium. Motion detected, main lobby. She tapped the alert, and a live feed from the security camera popped up. The lobby was empty, lit by the dim overnight lighting. The rain streaked the glass doors. Then, a figure stepped into view from outside, pressing close to the glass, peering in as if he could see through the walls to her office. He held up his hand and pressed it flat against the glass. In his palm, something small and metallic caught the light. A bracelet. He stood there for a full minute, a ghost at the gate, a chilling reminder, holding the very symbol of his control up for her to see. Then he smiled, a small, cruel twist of his lips, turned and walked back out into the rain, disappearing from the camera's view.
Ada sat frozen, the image seared into her mind. He hadn't crossed the 500-yard line. The lobby was outside the restricted perimeter of her workplace, which was defined as the interior office spaces. He had studied the order. He knew exactly where the line was drawn, and he was dancing on its edge, holding up his trophy. He wasn't going away. The legal victory, the promotion, her reclaimed health, none of it was the end he could accept. His silence hadn't been surrender, it had been strategy. The game had simply changed, becoming quieter, more sinister, and far more patient. The fear that had receded came flooding back, but it was met now by a colder, harder emotion, a furious resolve. He thought this was still a game of control. She understood now it was a war of endurance, and as she watched the empty, rain-smeared lobby on her screen, her hand instinctively went to her bare, strong wrist. Ada Vance knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that she would outlast him. The battle for her life was not over. It had just entered a new, silent phase, and she was ready. The rain continued its relentless rhythm against the darkened office window, a gray, whispering static that filled the silence left by Victor's chilling vigil. Ada did not move. On her phone screen, the security feed now showed an empty, rain-blurred lobby, a stage after the actor had delivered his most menacing line and exited. But the prop remained, seared into her vision, the glint of metal in his palm, the bracelet. Her first instinct was blind panic, a cold rush that tightened her throat and made her hands tremble against the polished desk. She wanted to call Eleanor, to call Iris, to call security, to scream. But she stayed still, forcing air into her lungs, deep and deliberate, a technique she'd learned in the worst throes of the tachycardia. In, hold, out. The panic crested, then began to recede, leaving behind a residue of icy, crystalline clarity. He had not crossed the line. He had been meticulous. This was not a heat-of-the-moment lapse. It was a calculated demonstration, a message. I am here. I remember. I own a piece of you, and the law is a line I can see and skirt. She saved the video clip from the security app, emailed it to herself and to Eleanor with the subject line, Incident 3. Perimeter test, and then stood up. Her legs were steady. She walked to the window and looked down at the slick, black streets 30 floors below. The city was a tapestry of neon-smeared and shifting headlights. He was down there somewhere, a toxin in the bloodstream of the night. He wanted her to feel watched, to feel that her sanctuary was permeable, to feel the old, familiar leash, even if he wasn't currently holding the end. He had forgotten one thing. The woman who had fled that apartment was not the woman who now stood in this office. That woman had been sick, weakened, her reality distorted by fear and manipulated biology. This woman was not. This woman had data. Instead of going home, she returned to her desk. She opened a new document. At the top, she typed, Pattern Analysis, VV. She began to list every incident, not just with emotion, but with cold forensic detail. 1. Flower delivery, date, time, public gesture, nostalgia bait, lilies, plus implied surveillance, watching you bloom. Goal, reestablish connection, inject himself into her professional space, induce anxiety. Method, third-party proxy, non-florist courier. Response, neutralized by public redistribution, no direct contact achieved. 2. Conference center text, date, time, escalation to direct communication, demonstrates specific, close-range visual surveillance, clothing details, private schedule. Goal, to induce terror via proof of proximity and knowledge, to undermine her sense of safety in a professional setting. Method, untraceable number, burner phone likely. Response, security/police involved, restraining order filed. 3. Symposium appearance, date, time, physical manifestation of threat during a high-stakes professional moment, direct eye contact. Goal, to disrupt performance, to reassert dominance in her new domain, to test her reaction under pressure. Method, use of fake credentials, knowledge of public event timing. Response, confrontation with authorities, RO served.
4. Lobby display. Date, time. Post-RO escalation. Communicates disregard for legal boundary while technically adhering to it. Use of a potent symbol, the bracelet. Goal. To negate the effectiveness of the RO psychologically, to prove his continued access and influence, to cause paralyzing fear. Method. Exploiting geographical loophole in the RO, theatrical use of symbol. The pattern was clear. He was escalating in sophistication, not in overt violence. Each move was designed to erode her mental state, to reclaim control through fear, to make the world she had built feel like a fragile diorama he could tap on the glass of. The restraining order, which she had seen as a shield, he was treating as a diagram of the battlefield, showing him exactly where the walls were so he could shine a light through the windows. Eleanor called as Ada was finishing her notes. The lawyer's voice was tight with controlled anger. I saw the video. It's textbook coercive control post-separation. The bracelet? That's psychological warfare. The police won't be able to do anything about this specific incident, Ada. He was on public property. I know, Ada said, her voice calm, surprising herself. He's engineering it that way. The RO is a map for him, Eleanor. It tells him what he can't do, so he's doing everything up to that line with artistic flair. There was a pause on the line, a shift from protective fury to professional assessment. You're analyzing him. He's data now, Ada replied, looking at her document. Predictable data. His goals haven't changed. Control, domination, my subjugation. His methods have been forced to adapt. We need to adapt faster. What are you thinking? I'm relying on my fear, on me feeling like a victim in a story he's writing. I need to flip the script. I need to make him the subject of scrutiny. An idea, audacious and dangerous, began to form in the clear space her anger had carved out. The symposium. He got in with a fake badge. Who made it? It was good enough to pass a cursory glance. He's not a forger. He either paid someone or he has help. Someone with access. You think he has an accomplice at the conference center or here? Maybe not an accomplice in the criminal sense, but an enabler, someone who feels sorry for the wronged husband or who owes him a favor. He's a salesman. He's charismatic. He manipulates for a living. He thought of the old doctor, Arthur Vaughan, and his accidental intervention. Victor's world was one where he controlled the narrative completely. Now, there were other characters in play. We need to expand the field. I'm not just going to defend, I'm going to investigate. Ada, that's risky. You could provoke him. He's already provoked. I'm just changing the game from hide and seek to chess, and I have resources he doesn't. She looked around her office at the network of a major corporation at her fingertips. Silas and Iris, they have a vested interest in the security of a senior executive. I'm going to talk to them, not as a victim, but as a VP reporting a security risk to the company.
The meeting the next morning was tense, but profoundly supportive. Silas Kincaid listened, his expression growing grimmer with each point. Iris sat with a look of grim recognition. Ada presented it not as a personal plea, but as a briefing. A former associate, she used the term deliberately, divorcing it from emotional baggage, was engaged in a campaign of targeted harassment that was escalating and had now impacted a company event, compromising security. He's demonstrated he can infiltrate our events, mimic credentials, and monitor a senior executive's movements, Ada concluded, her hands flat on the table. It's a personal vendetta, but it constitutes a clear security and reputational risk for Kincaid Logistics. Silas steepled his fingers. What do you need? 2 things. First, a formal security review. Our badge systems, access logs for the symposium day, vendor lists. I want to know how he got that fake credential. It might give us a lead. Second, discretion. I have a restraining order, the legal wheels are turning, but I believe he is gathering intelligence to continue his campaign. If company resources could be used to understand his current situation, it would help me assess the threat level. Iris understood immediately. A background check, post-divorce, finances, employment, associations, to see if he's unstable or if he's recruited help. It's unconventional, Silas mused. But you are not just an employee, Ada. You are family, and this man threatened our family inside our own house. He nodded. You'll have it. Iris, work with our security contractor. Keep it quiet. Ada, you focus on your work, but keep us apprised of every contact, every flicker at the edge of the camera. The corporate machinery, when motivated by loyalty and liability, moved with efficient silence. Within 48 hours, Iris provided Ada with a sanitized report. The fake badge had been traced to a small, shady print shop in a neighborhood Victor had no known connection to, paid for in cash. A dead end, but a confirmation of premeditation. The background check, however, was illuminating. Victor had taken a sudden leave of absence from his sales job 2 weeks prior. His finances, always carefully managed, showed unusual cash withdrawals and a recently opened line of credit. Most interestingly, his phone records, obtained through means Ada didn't question, showed a spike in calls to a single unlisted number in the weeks leading up to the symposium. The number was registered to a private investigator. The puzzle pieces shifted, clicking into a new, alarming configuration. He wasn't just stalking her himself. He was investigating her. He had hired a professional. This wasn't just about intimidation. It was about gathering ammunition. The realization sent a fresh chill through her. What was he looking for? Leverage. Something to use against her, to force her back, or to destroy what she'd built. Her newfound sense of strategy wavered. This was a more formidable enemy than the bitter ex-husband lurking in the rain. This was a planned, funded operation. She shared the findings with Eleanor, whose professionalism cracked to reveal genuine alarm. A PI changes everything, Ada. He's not just watching you, he's digging for dirt, for habits, for vulnerabilities. He could be looking for anything, professional missteps, new relationships, anything he can twist. Eleanor's voice was sharp. You need to become a fortress. Assume every communication is monitored. Your email, your trash, your conversations in public. Be boring, be impeccable. Ada's world, which had slowly expanded after the divorce, began to contract again, but this time the walls were of her own deliberate construction. She varied her routes to work, she used a company-owned laptop for everything, its security far superior to her personal devices. She stopped using her home Wi-Fi for anything sensitive. She became a ghost in her own life, leaving no digital or physical trace for the investigator to follow. The pressure was immense, a constant low-grade hum of paranoia. Yet within it, she found a strange power. She was no longer reacting, she was orchestrating. She began to plant false trails, mentioning a fictitious yoga class in a different part of town during a loud phone call in a cafe, using a dummy email to sign up for newsletters from businesses she would never patronize. If Victor was paying for information, she would make it expensive and useless. Weeks passed. The overt contacts ceased. No more flowers, no texts, no ghostly appearances. The silence now was more unnerving than the harassment, because she knew it was the silence of a predator gathering itself, or of a PI working in the shadows. She felt the strain in the set of her jaw, in the tightness of her shoulders, that no amount of yoga could ease. The break came from an unexpected source. Arthur Vaughn, the retired cardiologist, called her. His voice, warm and gravelly, was a shock of normalcy. "Young lady, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from the clinic. I told them I was following up on a patient. A white lie for a good cause, I think." "Dr. Vaughn, no, not at all. Is everything all right?" "With me, yes. With you, I wondered. I was at the farmer's market last Saturday, and I saw a man. He was asking about you, not in a friendly way. He was showing a photo of you from what looked like a company website, asking vendors if they'd seen you, if you came there often, what you bought. He was very professional, too professional. It made an old man's spine tingle." Ada gripped the phone. The PI. What did he look like?
Arthur described a man in his 40s, nondescript, wearing a baseball cap and a windbreaker. I followed him for a bit. Old habits. He got into a gray sedan. I'm no spy, but I memorized the license plate. He recited the number. It was a thread, a tiny, tangible thread. Ada, with Silas's tacit approval, passed the plate to the corporate security team. They ran it discreetly. The car was a rental, paid for by a corporate account registered to a shell company, but the credit card used to secure the rental was linked to a name, Martin Gage. A quick search revealed Martin Gage was indeed a licensed private investigator specializing in corporate espionage and, ominously, high-conflict matrimonial disputes. They had a name. They had a face. They had his method. Ada and Eleanor met, the dynamic shifting once more. "We can't touch Victor for hiring him," Eleanor said, pacing, "but we can disrupt the investigator. We can make you a toxic, unprofitable subject. We can sue Gage for invasion of privacy, harassment. We can file a complaint with the state licensing board. It's a war of attrition on his wallet and his reputation." "Do it," Ada said, "and send a letter to Victor from you. Don't accuse him of anything. Just state that we are aware of his engagement of Martin Gage of Gage Investigations and that all parties involved have been put on formal legal notice regarding harassment and unlawful surveillance. Cite the restraining order. Be cold, be factual. Let him know his shadow has been seen." The letter was sent, the lawsuit against Gage was prepared, a thick packet of documents detailing every incident traceable to his surveillance. The silence that followed this maneuver was of a different quality. It felt like the quiet after a decisive artillery barrage. Then, one evening, her personal phone, a cheap pay-as-you-go burner she'd acquired for trusted contacts, rang. The number was blocked. She knew. She answered, saying nothing. His voice came through, not angry, not wheedling, but tired, strangely hollow. "You hired your own detectives." She remained silent. "You turned my own play against me. That's clever, Ada. Very clever." A long exhale. "Gage dropped me as a client, said you were more trouble than you're worth. Legal threats. License review." He gave a short, bitter laugh. "You've become expensive." Still, she said nothing. Let him talk to the void he was trying to fill. "The bracelet," he started, then stopped. The silence stretched. When he spoke again, the performative tone was gone, replaced by something that sounded, for the first time, like genuine, bewildered loss. "I just wanted you to need me." The line went dead. Ada held the phone to her ear for a moment longer, listening to the dial tone. There was no triumph in the moment, only a profound and weary sadness. The monster, when finally cornered not by fear but by superior strategy, had just shown itself to be a small, lonely man, but a small, lonely man with a dangerous capacity for harm. She didn't know if this was the end. He was wounded, his resources dwindling, his methods exposed, but wounded animals were unpredictable. She would not drop her guard. The fortress would remain. The data would be monitored. The legal shields would stay in place. But that night, for the first time in months, she slept through the night without dreaming of gleaming metal or watching eyes. She woke at dawn, the first pale light etching the lines of her own independent room. She placed her hand on her chest, feeling the strong, steady, ungovernable rhythm within. It was hers. It had always been hers. The war was not over. Wars like this never truly are. But she had won the critical battle. She had seized control of the narrative. And as the sun rose, painting her walls in gold, Ada Vance understood that the most powerful weapon she had reclaimed was not her health, her career, or her legal standing. It was her own relentless, forward-moving time, and she would use it to build a life so vast, so bright, and so authentically her own that his shadow, when it occasionally flickered at the periphery, would be too small to darken more than a single, insignificant inch.